All right, so we're live. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank the panelists for joining. My name is Lamar Dixon. I'm an executive board member for MBKCares, and I'm tonight's moderator with
Maya Dixon
for this week's Wellness Wednesday. The topic this week is as homes become classrooms, and tonight we're joined with Maya Dixon, Iris Hines-Flamer, Jonathan Marshall, Janet Evans, Trinity Smith, and Tara Denise. For the last 7 weeks, we've been having discussions about mental health, physical fitness, art, parenting, and we also had a panel about veterans that I was on. And if you get a chance, you guys should go back and take a look at that one because that was pretty cool. And we hope that all the viewers receive valuable gems or resources within the discussion. So first, we're going to go around and do an introduction. We're going to start with Maya.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maya Dixon, and I'm a freshman at Cardinal O'Hara High School in Pennsylvania.
All right. Next, Tara and Trinity.
Okay. I'm Trinity, and I just graduated from school.
Okay.
My name is Tara Denise. I wear a lot of different hats, but in this particular setting, I am the mother of Trinity Smith, who just graduated and was recently a senior in high school. I keep wanting to say she's a senior, but she's a graduate now.
All right. Thank you. Iris.
Hi, I'm Iris Hines-Flamer, and I'm an educator. I have taught in Philadelphia as well as Charlotte, North Carolina, over 25 years, and I currently have a business. It's called Learn Strategies, and I pretty much provide enrichment and consulting and any type of services to children from pretty much from K through 6th grade.
Oh, that's awesome. Janet, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Jan Evans, and I too am an educator. A few more years than you, Iris, but still an educator. And I have retired, but I've been very involved for the last 20 years with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, both nationally and our strong local Philadelphia chapter.
Okay, thank you. Last but not least, John, would you like to introduce yourself?
How you doing? I'm John Marshall. I as well, I'm a former educator, but currently I work as an academic outreach manager. I work at Eastern University, and I work with our education students. So those who are going into trying to be teachers, I'm there for them to help them with the process. Prior to that, I also worked as a mental health social worker with adolescents.
Cool. Well, I'm excited about this discussion. For myself, I think I said it earlier. I turned into a principal, a lunch aide, a teacher, and I'm interested to hear how other people have adapted to the pandemic. So first we're going to start with Trinity. Trinity, if you could you congratulations on your recent graduation.
Thank you.
Can you take us through the last 3 months of the pandemic and how it changed your senior year?
So the last 3 months were really hard. My grandfather actually passed away in March, right around when everything started. So that was already really hard for me. It's just been really difficult because I feel like these last 3 months were supposed to be like the most memorable time. Like I was supposed to go to prom and grad bash and actually walk the stage and like have all my family with me for my graduation party, and it just didn't happen. So it's been really difficult, and even just with like doing everything virtually, like with school, it's really easy to just get discouraged. And when you're at the end, like I'm a senior, these are the last 3 months of my entire school career, and it's like right when you make it to the end, just like taken away. So it's been hard. It was hard, but I just managed to get through it, just knowing that everything happens for a reason. And I just wanted to make my family proud. I just knew that I was going to be graduating. So it was hard, but I like to get through it. So happy about that.
Yeah, I see the smile on your mom's face, so you definitely made her proud.
Yes.
Terry, can you tell us about like how you're handling everything? How you dealing with work and, being a mom? Like, how are you balancing that?
Well, I'm sure as many parents can probably attest to, nothing could have prepared us for what we were getting ready to engage into in the year of 2020. As Trinity mentioned, our grandfather had recently passed away. Trinity's great-grandfather, my grandfather. So we were already dealing with the emotions from that. We had traveled up to Cleveland. We were hearing vaguely different things about the pandemic, but nothing that we took too seriously. We thought, when we left out of town on a Monday, by that Friday, we would get an email that she wasn't to return to school that Monday. And that's literally how it happened. Okay. So even then, we didn't know how long this was going to be. We didn't know how serious it was. But I can say that I have another daughter who is 15. Both Trinity and my youngest daughter transitioned into this online learning fairly quickly. It was Mom that was kind of lacking in really grasping the transition. It's something about kids that I'm around in this generation. They're able to adapt fairly quickly. I don't know if it's because of just how experienced they are with the technology, or they just kind of roll with the punches, but literally they were teaching me things that I had no clue. And I would hear about it kind of through email. Her school did an excellent job of communicating with us through email. So as a parent, I'm getting these emails and I'm like, you guys, this is what we got to do. They're like, Mom, we already did it. I'm like, but I thought I had to show you how to do it. So I'm grateful that my two daughters made that transition into online learning fairly easy. However, the three of us did not know that it would last until now. We literally thought in March, hey, this might be for a month. Let's just kind of roll with it until we get more information about when you all are going to return. Next thing I know, we're getting an email telling them to empty out their lockers because we're in this for the long haul. And when it became reality for all of us. It was different for both children. My youngest daughter, we had our challenges. With Trinity, the adjustment was she works as well. So not only was she having to transition to online learning, she had to balance her work life as well. And I didn't want that to interfere with the new online learning, because as crazy as it sounds, the demand in education online was greater than it was in a classroom. Yeah. So her assignment load was fairly heavy. So as a parent, I was just trying to make sure that they stayed on top of their assignments. At the same time, keep them sane amidst everything they were hearing on social media, on television. Students talk amongst each other. You go from just a flu-like pandemic to you all are going to die. So it's just trying to manage, just making sure that they stayed sane mentally, and then as far as their education, making sure they stayed on top of things. So it was a challenge, but I'm blessed to have two wonderful kids to make the transition much easier.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And Trinity, like how was the, I have one more question for you too, but how was the graduation? I know it's not, you stepping across the stage, but how was the graduation for you?
Well, actually, my school, it's a private school, so they just postponed it. We're actually still have the actual graduation ceremony July 24th, so I'm still waiting on that, but they did have a parade for us because my graduation was supposed to be May 15th, so last Friday they did like a parade, and it was really fun. Like, I was telling my mom and my grandparents, it's like the first time I felt like I had actually graduated. It was like really good. I just got like a lot of love and support. So there was like a parade. You just like drove around. They gave us our cap and everything. So it worked out, and it really did like help me because I needed that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
My next question is for Iris. Tara, she talked about how quickly her children had adapted to online learning. How is that like incorporated with your business, with teaching kids online? Like I'm pretty sure like prior to the pandemic, it was a lower percentage versus to 100% of children schooling from home. How has that changed for you?
Well, it has changed tremendously. And because I do work with individuals, families, and sometimes small groups, I'm able to really get a pretty much a viewpoint from both parents as well as children. And because since it was such an abrupt occurrence of this COVID, my parents were really panicking. They were just so concerned because they didn't feel like they had the skill set to really help their kids with the wherewithal. And so as I talked to them and walked them through it, I really had some very interesting responses. For example, one parent who has a second grade student didn't feel she was able to meet the requirements for her second grade student all day because she held a very demanding and challenging position at work. And so she was working from home and she had to meet those requirements all day long and then try to fulfill the requirements for her second grader. And when I tell you, she really had a very serious meltdown. She went on Zoom and she cried so badly to me and said, I can't do this anymore. I don't think I can go on with this. And I had to help her through it. And I said to her that mental health and emotional health are more important. That's first. Right. That if you don't have your mental and emotional health, and if your child doesn't have it, and they see that you stress and they stress, then you're not going to be very effective with helping them through their academics. Right. So I had her to kind of dial it back. And I told her to kind of divide the lessons in half. And that if her student did not get everything done, that she really had to go to the teacher and tell the teacher exactly what was going on with her student. In addition, because I do teach my students and I do have physical contact, as we all have, I had another student who was first grade, and I tried to teach her via Zoom, and she had a meltdown. And her mother said she needs touch points, physical touch points, that she just couldn't adapt. And so I have been doing some Zoom lessons. Some of them have gone well. And a lot of it has to do with them finally getting some sense of organization. Fortunately, I kind of see pros and cons here, and I do see a silver lining, which I will talk a little bit more about that at some point. But it's just been a very interesting dynamic and a very interesting experience teaching online. I loved it. I'm very touchy-feely too with my students. I love to hug and to truly praise them and make them really feel so good and give them the confidence. And it's just so difficult through the screen. So
yeah,
it's been quite challenging.
Yeah, when you said about the parent had a meltdown, I mean myself. I think 1 week I had a meltdown myself. I was just overwhelmed, and then the exact next week she had an issue too. So we was like, we have to get it together. And yes. What were some of the things that you did?
So we took a walk. We sat outside. We cleaned our area, our rooms. What else did we do? We read. We took a break from technology, and we meditated and stretched. Yeah, we just had to adapt, and it was it's relatable for me. So I mean, I had that issue as well.
Could I just
John,
add another thing? I had a similar experience with my daughter, who is a teacher herself, but has 3 little children, 1 brand new baby. And the first week she cried every single day, but she eventually worked it out. And I think the big thing for parents is they have to realize they're not going to mirror what's happening in the classroom. Right. They're the parents, not the teacher. And I think if they understand that, they're doing the best they can, and they're just cannot actually produce exactly what the classroom is, then they're okay. And I think doing what you did, Tara, is taking breaks and giving rewards to your kids after doing something. I think it really helps. So I just wanted to add that we're parents, not teachers, and don't expect it that way.
Yes. Hey, Jan, with everything going on, and how do you think next school year will be?
I'm involved with the school that I retired from. And so they're talking about smaller classes. I've heard people talking about 2 sessions, having a morning session and afternoon session. It's going to change for sure. I think that the colleges, and Jonathan, maybe you can speak to this too, but I think a lot of the colleges had already started to make a lot more online classes. And it's possible that the public schools will also start doing more of that as well. We'll have to see what happens in September. I know some of the colleges have already said they're opening up, at least some of the ones in the South. We'll have to see what happens up here.
Yeah. John, what do you think about that? How do you think, I know you worked for Eastern University. How do you think the next semester is going to be?
It's definitely going to change. As we already seen, like the good thing about the program I work with, education, it was kind of varying to a lot of online anyway. The biggest transition will be with the addition of just online is going to be like Zoom. So what is the fall going to look like for students? Is it going to be that either they don't physically come on campus and they stay home and they take their classes via Zoom, or is everything going to be online for them and continue the way it is? So that's pretty much where higher ed is at the same time. You know, they're kind of just trying to figure it out. And I think the thing that makes it kind of difficult is because there's nothing set in stone as far as timeline. So it's like, well, we have to plan for both scenarios. Whereas if we're going to possibly go back on campus, how is that going to look? How are we going to have students in the classroom? Or if we, stay completely online, how is that going to look? And how can we still, one, make sure that, learning is still available for the students, but also all the resources that a lot of these students had. A lot of times we think because the students are in college that they have every resource that they need, but a lot of times there are some students who are homeless. There are some students who are in different situations, and you still have to be cognizant about all of those things as well. So, and then once again, the idea of mental health, like how is, this has been a tough time for people, transitioning to the end of the year. But starting the year off, how are people going to manage knowing that they have their families? And so I work with young and adult students. So they're thinking, how am I going to start my school year, as well as my son or daughter? How am I going to help them transition into this? So it's a lot of that going on. So I can imagine like how the fall will look. So yeah, it's going to be different.
Yeah, so that brings us to my next question. And this is for anyone that wants to answer this on a panel. There are, some students that are, they're having a hard time right now. They're living in homes with, it could be lack of food. It could be, abuse going on. What kind of advice, if they were listening out, what kind of advice could you give those students? If anybody want to answer? No? You got anything? No?
I know outside of just my role with Trinity, I work in ministry as well. And in ministry, I work with youth. So you're bringing up an excellent point. I always try to check in with them just to, because I see a lot of comments, especially when all of this first happened. People being very frustrated, being stuck in the house, or having to stay in the house, or the stay-at-home order that was executed, and people having their gripes and complaints about that. Yeah. But of course, I thought about those individuals that had a valid reason for being fearful of being in the house. Sometimes going to school was their outlet. Sometimes going to work was their outlet, because they're in a home environment that may not be something that they're necessarily comfortable in. And because that's not my reality, it really kind of took a minute for me to grasp that idea. I'm sitting here complaining about what nail salon I can't go to, or what sale I can't go into the mall and take advantage of, where I'm at home in a very comfortable environment. So once I start really dealing with the realities of that, I began to really reach out to my youth just to make sure, are you okay? Is there anything you need to talk about? Is there anything that I can do? Is there, so I myself have not had an experience of hearing anyone tell me, I'm in an abusive relationship, or I don't have any food. But those are realities that I would encourage people when I spoke to them, or when they would begin complaining, that, check on your village, check on your circle, check on people that you're connected to, because they may be silent cries that we're not recognizing that their home environment is not something that they're comfortable in.
Right.
Yeah. In addition to my business, I'm also a member of the, it's called BCDI, the Black Child Development Institute of Charlotte. And we pretty much help a lot of brown and Black children because of all the vulnerabilities and also disparities there are in healthcare and in just financial wealth and education. And we're really trying to help out tremendously with, we've created a food pantry because we know that these students, a lot of our students are on free or reduced lunch where they have to have their breakfast and their lunch in school. And so they've been missing, of course, meals each day. And so we've really been trying to focus on trying to help them and reach out, you know, through our organization, through churches, and through other nonprofit organizations to try to get a grasp on who's in need and set up places for them to come to pick up food. In addition, because of the tremendous learning loss, I mean, there is also a 30%, I think it's like thousands of kids are going to be behind because of this COVID learning loss. So we've been really trying to reach out and help with reading. We do story time. Our organization does story time on BCDI Charlotte.org. And also, there are also celebrities. There's Michelle Obama and Tamron Hall, who goes on, and there's several others who do storytelling. But our organization does do storytelling. And we also have tried to create programs to try to find a way to reach out to those who are really going to have learning loss. I know also that some of them, while they were given, you know, small computers to work through the online learning, some of them did not have access to internet or access to cable. And so that's been another issue that my organization has also been addressing, where we can help them to find hotspots so that their kids can go on and learn. Because you're right, they're is it Trinity, Tara, that you're absolutely right that, you know, we can't take this for granted, that there are so many people who are underserved, who are not really getting a fair chance here. And as I said, some of them were already behind from the very beginning of the school year, and now they're really going to have such a tremendous disadvantage. So we've been trying to do some of the things to reach out to fill some of those gaps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for storytelling, you know, for John, I know that you're an author. I know you just published your first book. Congratulations.
Trying to be like you, that's all.
Whatever, man. But how is that? You know, how has that been? I know that you've been, you know, giving your book out to the community and doing certain things. How is that, you know, transition, you know, to the kids, just to help them out during this time?
It's been awesome. I had a couple opportunities to do read out louds during this whole pandemic, and it's been cool just being able to share the book with kids who surprisingly, like, a lot of them log into the story time. So it's funny how much families have been really looking forward to, like, different story times, not just from, you know, the ones I was part of, but it's been like I've seen them all across the internet, story times, and families have been really enjoying them and really clinging to them during this time. And it's cool because, you know, it also opens, you know, children to, like, tons of books that they have never seen or heard before. You know, they may have, you know, only seen a few books that they've had in school, but how often do children go to the library? And also, you can't go to the library right now either. So it's opening the doors to them to being available to other books that are also out there for them. Right. And it's also, to be honest, it's been cool just being able to talk to some children too. And also, like, just in the sense of discussing, like, how they can be creative during this time and during this period, how they can kind of create their own thing, create their own, you know, books and stories. So it's been a little different, just in the sense of, you know, because everything's done by video. And I usually like to talk to people face to face, but it's been good.
Yeah, I run this a nonprofit called Dedicated to Greatness Basketball, and I see a bunch of their kids, like a bunch of our kids, like doing different drills and stuff like that, just to stay busy. So I don't know, I get excited.
Yeah. I mean, you probably haven't seen Isaiah in a while, but he's been doing the drills. We were playing earlier prior to this, so he's still practicing.
that dude is he's super talented, man.
He is. I don't know where you're gonna get it from me
though. Janet, do you have any if the pandemic continues on into the next school year, do you have any advice for parents that will have to homeschool next year?
Well, hopefully the schools will be more on top of it. I went to the Philadelphia School District's website, and actually I learned a lot, but it took them a while to get it going. It looks like things are going pretty well. They have everybody's supposed to have a Chromebook, but you're right, I don't know if everybody has internet. But the lessons seemed well organized. So I think that schools had a little bit of a learning period, and now that they've had some time to really figure it out, hopefully that if it starts in September where we have to continue at home, the schools will be better prepared. And that's what I would hope, and I assume that they would be. But it's still going to be hard on kids, no matter what. I must say, the girls are so resilient, and I think that's wonderful, but it's still going to be difficult for them.
Yeah. Iris, do you have any suggestions for parents that are...
Well, to piggyback on Jonathan, he talked about, stories for kids, and I mentioned also that we do some stories with my organization, and you can go online and you can get a lot of opportunities for kids to listen to stories. But I would also say that since, the kids have been out of school already for 3 months approximately, that they really need to spend time this summer really trying to stay in some books. Now, again, I know that it's a learning curve and it's hard for parents not understanding exactly what to do because, you're not quite educators. But I think that from them, they've now been able to spend some time home with their kids. They have a better sense, I think, now of what they're doing and kind of what their expectations are from the teachers. So I would say that, it's going to be imperative that they read and try to stay in books throughout the summer. And I don't know whether libraries will open again, but perhaps there's a way to get books online. There are some organizations, a lot of nonprofit organizations are really reaching out with books for kids. So I think that going online, trying to find those nonprofit organizations or advocates for children to try to find ways to reach books, because the books they can get so much out of reading. Right. Vocabulary development and making connections and social emotional intelligence, and there's so many things they can learn from books. So my advice is as they move through the summer, not quite sure what's going to happen in the fall, to at least stay in books, read, and that goes for all grades. I mean, high school, I know oftentimes parents, and my parents, when I've worked with parents in upper grades, they didn't necessarily see the need to read with their kids, but believe it, even during that time, it's nice to kind of flip pages and you kind of take turns reading, but they need to at least stay with books and read as much as possible so that it won't be too much of a learning loss as we move into the fall.
Okay. Hey, thank you. Sarah, I know that, you're through ministry, you have an organization that helps homeless women. How's, during this time, during the last 3 months, how's that been going on?
Well, surprisingly, just before COVID-19, we did a transition of the women that have been in the house for the past year. Were making their transition out. So we were right in the midst of the transition of the women that were currently housed at our temporary home were transitioning out. There was one lady that was still in there, and so of course we didn't transition anyone back in with everything going on. It's just the one lady that we have in there. We check on her often. Of course, we're very, very mindful of our elderly or our individuals with pre-existing illnesses, things of that nature. And there's a couple of categories that she falls under that makes it in our best interest to make sure that she doesn't have to go out for anything. So we have a committee that pretty much oversees that home. And we all try to check in on her, make sure everything that she needs, everything's taken care of so that she has no reason to really have to go out. And then, of course, as I'm so glad that so many people keep mentioning on this platform, making sure her mental health is good, making sure that that's intact. Prior to all of this happening, I would go over and do Bible studies with her And so, of course, now since that's limited, I make sure that we're still able, because we shared a lot in those Bible study sessions. So I try to continue that dialogue, even though I think Jonathan said it's not the same because you're on a video or it's over the phone. We don't have that tangible interaction where I'm touching her. I'm a touchy-feely person. However, sometimes people just want to know. Every now and then I'll just text her, hey, I'm thinking about you. Hey, I just want to make sure you're okay. And sometimes that's the little things that we tend to overlook with the busyness of life. I think all of this has caused us to kind of slow down and appreciate certain things. So just a little message here and there saying, hey, I'm thinking about you seems to mean a lot to her. But yeah, the way things kind of happen, there's only one young lady in that home right now.
All right.
Hi, Ms. Evans. So I know you're involved in suicide prevention work. Are there any resources for parents and children who may be in a dark place during this period?
Actually, there are, and I think Ishan has a website, but if they go to afsp.org, just go to the national office and you end up on their webpage. If you scroll down, there's a whole toolkit for how to deal with mental health during this time. Little things, like I was taking some notes, and little things are, it's important to take care of your physical health as well as your mental health. So just the same things that you do to keep yourself physically fit, like exercise, getting good sleep, being on a routine, that's all very important for your mental health. Staying focused on what you can control is so important. And, it did say limit the TV, don't listen to too much of the news, but just concentrate on what you have control of. And I think, I can't remember who just mentioned it. Oh, Tara, I think it was you, that you now have time to maybe do some things that you didn't have time to do before, that take advantage of this if you can. Yeah. And then the other thing was to make sure that try to make your environment, because you're in your same environment for such a long period of time, try to make it as comfortable as possible. I know that that's what I've done at my house. I've kind of made a little space where I have green plants and lots of light. So I think it's really important to have that. And then if you do have some mental health issues, most of the therapists are now, we have the thank you, the website up there. Most are doing telehealth. So it's important that you keep your medications going and that you reach out to your therapist through mental telehealth. The other website that's up there is the Seize the Awkward. And very quickly, we just talked about how this has been hard on kids. And this website is a great website for kids to reach out to their friends and talk about that hard conversation, like, are you okay? Different ways to reach out to their friends. And I think that's a great website. It's important for kids to see that. They have some celebrities on there talking about their mental health issues. Mm-hmm. So it's a great website for kids. But just like with adults, kids need to have the same resources as far as taking care of their mental health. Also, we have to make sure with kids that we don't minimize what's going on, that we really listen to what they say and really listen and make sure that we make sure that they feel safe. That's just the most important thing. It's just listening to kids and just making sure that they understand that you're all in it together, so to speak. So, thank you for putting those resources up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trinity, I know you mentioned earlier how, over the last, 3 months has changed, and at one point you were frustrated. What are some of the things that you did to push through?
I really just had a lot of talks with my mom. She really helps me to see the brighter side of everything. A lot of my family knows I really tend to think negatively about situations. I don't always think about it that way. So really just talking to my family, and specifically my mom, just about my emotions, not holding it in, letting it out to her really helped me. So.
Real quick question.
Go ahead.
I want to know from Maya and Trinity, did you guys see the graduate together ceremony this weekend?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I really just appreciate everything that, everybody is doing. So watching it and just like seeing that I'm not the only person that's feeling how I'm feeling, like all seniors all over the world, they're feeling the same way. So just like having that to me, all these celebrities and like Barack Obama, like speak out, like Horace, it was like really nice. I feel like every little thing that everyone is doing, it really does help.
I keep referring to her class as the historical class of 2020. So they've had to endure a lot, but this is like an unforgettable class. So every time I refer to her class, I'm like, you're with the historical class. You are the class of 2020.
That's very true. I listened to President Obama's speech also for the 12th graders, for the high school graduates, and I jotted down a couple of things that he said that I thought were very powerful. One was, if the world's going to get better, it's going to be up to you. That that this outbreak faces you now to grow up faster than some generations, but you're really more resilient than you know, and that you really can just power up and try to fight through and really make this particular situation a real positive, And I mean, I don't know anybody else heard what he said, but he was incredible, I thought, and very positive and very encouraging for high school graduates.
Very much so. Very much.
I have a question for Trinity. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But I'm gonna be a sophomore next year, so I was wondering if you had any advice for my high school, for the rest of my high school years.
Okay. So I say take your SATs and ACTs as early as possible. I waited until this year, my senior year, to take it.
Don't judge us.
It's not, if I could give any advice to anyone, it would be take those tests as early as you can, because trying to squeeze it in on top of filling out college applications and everything, it's just really stressful. I ended up taking it almost every month, trying to get the score that I wanted when I could have started my junior year and studied, and just take that as soon as possible. And I would also say, just take as many classes as you can before you get to your senior year. I only had 4 classes this year, so I was able to work and go to school, which I really liked. It just made senior year more fun, just not knowing that I didn't have a huge workload. So just try to take as many classes as you can and get those tests over. Don't wait until senior year to do everything. It's not fun at all. And just like don't get discouraged. I actually switched from public school to private school, and it was a really hard change for me, and I just like really doubted myself, and just it was really hard. So just don't get discouraged, just keep pushing through. Graduation, it feels really good. Even with me not being able to do it traditionally, it still has been really nice. So just don't get discouraged. Make sure you try to do everything as early as possible so you can just have a great senior year.
Thank you.
Hey Trinity, I appreciate you telling her that, because she's transitioning from like a public school to a private school too. So it's been a culture shock.
Yeah. Our soundboard.
Yes.
I just let my kids vent to me every day. As a parent, I know why we needed to do it. I love the fact that we did it. We had our own reasons for doing it, but my kids fought me tooth and nail, and I just let them. I let them vent to me every day. I let them complain to me every day, but she got through it.
Yeah. All right, so my next question is for the entire panel. What are some like I know it's a lot of terrible things that are going on, like within households. We discussed that earlier. But what are some of the good things that are happening within your household? Like for us, we never sit at the table to eat, and for the last 3 months, we haven't missed a day, like sitting at the table to eat, and we just turn on the music, and we've been enjoying each other. And I'm learning my kids. It's like I thought I knew them, but now I feel like I really know my kids. What are some of the, some good things that are happening within your homes?
I think that's one of the things there. for instance, last Friday, I have I used to be a Boy Scout, so I have a tent. So we just pitched the tent up in the basement. It's not a big tent, don't worry. So we just pitched the tent up in the basement, and we're watching movies inside the tent in the basement. Like, being able to do things like think about things that you probably normally wouldn't think about, or do things that you would have done, but work takes precedence, or you're to be honest, you could be being lazy, or you're on your phone, or so it allows you, because you're on, the computer all day doing Zoom and classes. By that time the end of the day comes, you kind of get, fatigue from all this, computer and all. So by that time the end of the day comes, you're like, I just want to, do something. So, I mean, last week we flew a kite, like in the middle of the street. Like, we were running up and down the street flying the kite. So, I mean, it's been able to, we've been having moments where we can just spend a lot more time together, but just doing stuff that we probably randomly wouldn't do because we have a phone, or because there's a tablet, or because there's a TV. So that's one of the things for me. So yeah.
I typically try to advocate the idea of having balance, like a balanced lifestyle. Yeah. However, with the business of life, sometimes, work takes more precedence over my spiritual life. Certain things take precedence over having a physical life, as far as physical activity. So I did notice that we've been more focused on making sure that balance is happening. Like I said, we're active in ministry, so we just had our typical routine of getting up on Sunday mornings, going to church. Well, for the first couple of weeks, since there was no going to church, I allowed my kids to sleep in on Sunday, because it's like they're not going anywhere. But I thought, the importance of still having that spiritual foundation and that base is important. So even though we're not actually going into the building, you all still get up and we'll view church together and stream it. As it streams, we're still watching that as a family. We're still doing that as a family. I noticed we weren't going outside. So as a family, come on, let's get up, let's go ride bikes, let's go take a walk. Like, we have to incorporate those things intentionally to provide that balance, which is one thing that I don't think I would have done just because you get in a routine. We go here, we overlook this, we should be doing that, but we don't. This made me say, okay, you all, it's Sunday, let's go to the living room and watch, this church service. Okay, you all, it's 3:00. We've been in the house all day. Let's go outside and do that. So it forced us to have a routine. And that's one thing that as a mom, they know I use this word all the time, structure. As they've gotten older, I feel like I lost a little bit of that structure, just because, they do their own thing. I don't bother them. I do my own thing. They don't bother me. But it brought that structure back to our lifestyle.
And both of my children are grown, and so I don't have children at home, but I'm getting some tremendous and fantastic feedback from some of my parents. And one of the things that I noticed in teaching in the classroom over the years has been that there's really been a breakdown of family structure and family communication. And I kind of saw where some of that was missing. And what I'm getting from parents now is that they're really spending so much more time with their kids. Well, they're home and they have to some degree, but they're also learning so much about their children that they really didn't know, because their children are gone, 8 to 10 hours every day. And then then you have like the evenings, which will always rushed to get homework done and dinner and in the bed. And then they may have weekends that are also sometimes very rushed to get ready for the following week. So I'm hearing from them that they have learned this time has been quality time for them in many respects. I mentioned earlier that there's a silver lining, and I think honestly that is the silver lining, that so many families have now come together, and it's been beautiful. And Terry, you talked about prayer. I've heard from families talking down about sitting down as a family and eating and praying together, and something that they just weren't doing as much before. So it's really been very positive in that respect.
Yeah, I agree too, because we that's something that we've been doing as well. Just sitting like every night, just making sure that we pray together, meditate, and just and also we have like a movie night. So one night we'll go in the basement just like John and just make a bunch of popcorn and get a bunch of snacks and enjoy each other. It's been a really good time. It's been, it's been, it sucks that we weren't able to go outside and do certain things, but I've been enjoying my time with my kids.
And we get competitive in chess.
Yeah, we started playing chess.
It's funny, but in some ways, I'm like, I'm almost sad that it'll eventually end, because the reality is like things will go back to the norm.
Right.
So it's like, how do we keep some of that after all of this moves on, right? Like, how do we keep the structure of wanting to actually sit down with each other and talk to each other and have, spend time, play games? I don't know how many times my son has beat me in phase 10. And he's only 9. Like, I'm not cool with that. So how do we make sure that after all of this is over, that we still try to keep some of that, So.
Yeah. I said I thought the same thing as well. Like before that, we had I coached 3 teams. Then my kids, they had their games. So I was dragging them from gym to gym, every weekend. And now it's just like we're able to sit still, and I like it.
Yes.
I like it. Yeah. I'd have another question for the panel. For people that are viewing, could you give them some self-care tips? Just something to help them, I guess, just stop and be still. You have any self-care tips or anything?
Well, I would say that to those parents I talked about who are still working from home and who have tremendous challenges and demands on them, and then they still have to raise their kids and work with their kids, I told them, and I've suggested a few of them, that they should, I'm not a person who really advocates worksheets, because I like to really get in and really teach. But I said to them, in this particular case, it's okay to set your children up with maybe some, very young kids, maybe dot to dot worksheets or some math worksheets or some sheets that they can just work on, also coloring by number, and just kind of setting them up while they can, and kind of set them up for a little while so they can then go and do their own work. And it doesn't have to be such a tug of war with trying to keep them quiet while they're trying to get something done. I also told them that, they still should be on a schedule. One of the things I recommended was, I said, have your children sit down with you and develop a schedule together. They've been in school. They're accustomed to having different classes. They're accustomed to having recess and lunch. And so let them be a part of that planning and plan a schedule. And they have to have a rest time like they would have to do in school, or they would have to have downtime. And I think having some type of schedule for both mom and father and children would really be very, I would highly recommend. Having some sense of structure and some sense of having a system.
Lamar, you mentioned meditation, or no, maybe it was Maya mentioned meditation, but I think it's also really good. That's something that you can do with a family. Mindfulness, any kind of yoga. You can go online and follow, online, but doing something like that to kind of increase somebody's awareness and just being more mindful, but you can do it together. So, your child, even if it's a young child, could do it with you. You're teaching them a lifelong skill if you can get them to kind of be able to get some sort of mindfulness into their bodies and being able to deal with that. So I think that's, you mentioned that, I think that's a great thing for families to do as well, to help with their mental health.
Yeah, we've been using this app called Calm. And,
what was it called?
Calm, C-A-L, Calm, yeah.
Okay.
And, I had to think about how to spell it. But yeah, we've been using that, and it's been awesome. It costs a small price, but it's been very beneficial for myself and even Maya. We've been doing it, try to do it every day. And we had a couple of questions from the viewers. A viewer named Kia. She said, can anyone recommend any engaging learning strategies for a K through 4th grade student?
Like websites, do you think, or?
She said engaging learning strategies, or maybe websites. That could be a good resource.
Is it K to 4th?
Yeah.
No, you said K to 4?
K to 4, yes.
K to 4. Well, I know the Smithsonian Museums has website, and they have all types of activities and things that kids can log on and do. I know NASA also has a great website for kids to go on. Education First also has a great website. So those are some good websites for them to go on, and it's very engaging, and they also have websites for science experiments. So
Right.
those
I
are
think
some things.
I noticed when I went to the Philadelphia School District, they had some websites on there. So if your caller is in the Philadelphia School District, well, anybody can go. I did, and I'm not in the district. They do have some good sites. And Bill Nye has one. National Geographic has one. There's something called Khan Academy, Brain Pop. All you have to do is Google it, and there's a lot. But most of the ones that I've seen were actually free. So.
Yes.
Another good one is ABC Ya. My kids use that.
What
I
is it?
play ABC Ya, so it's abcya.com.
Oh.
And I actually hang out with them while they're doing their activities. A lot of them are learning games. Some of them are just fun games. So that's a pretty cool website as well.
John, someone asked, what's the name of your book?
Oh, it's called I'll Be Right There. It's actually a book dedicated to my boys. Hold on, they're sneaking in right now. Hold on. My boys Isaiah and Elijah. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
The book is dedicated to them. So yeah, say hi. You see Coach right there?
What's up, Isaiah?
Yeah, they're used to video all day, so they're probably done by now. So, but yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. And this is my last question. Do you have any like hacks, like any life hacks that you've used during the pandemic? I mean, for us, like I don't go to the grocery store. I usually use like Amazon Fresh or Shipped. You guys have any like life hacks that people could use? No.
Amazon.
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 Oh, you know what? No, I have another one. So Target actually does shipping as well, and they do delivery to your door. I just found that out last week. I didn't even know they did.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah, so that's a problem. So
the post office too. You can do everything online. You don't have to ever go to the
yeah,
post office.
that's pretty.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like if you really don't want to go outside, you almost don't have to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So going to go around the room. Tara and Trinity, can you just tell us where, if you have any resources that people can reach you at, can you let us know?
My Instagram, probably, it's at Trinity Anissa, TrinityAnissa.
Well, I have brand Hair is Light. That's, like I said, I wear a lot of different hats, but I'm on here as Trinity's mom, so you'll see a lot of stuff. I'm very close to my daughters. They're both teenage girls, so it's important for me to be that person that they feel comfortable coming to. I'm still a mom, so I'm still annoying, but I think that my girls feel fairly comfortable opening up and coming to me about a lot of things. So on my Instagram, you'll see a lot of my relationship with my girls. However, I also do have an organization called LADY. The acronym LADY stands for Love and Define Yourself, and it's very interesting. I was going through personally, I have a history of anxiety, and that's one thing that I've been more open to discussing throughout this whole pandemic, because I've had to tell people that. That's normally something I usually wouldn't say or tell people, but it became very necessary for me to make that clear to people because I was taking on too much, and it was affecting me emotionally. But the Lady organization, Love and Define Yourself, I kind of put that on pause in the beginning of 2020 because I felt some stuff going on and some stuff stirring. I didn't know what was going to happen. I definitely am not a psychic or I don't speak prophetic, but I felt something really, really happening and changing in the year of 2020. And because I couldn't really, focus in or zone in on what was going on, I just put my organization on pause and allowed the Lord to kind of speak to me and walk me through what he was trying to say to me. And so now that we're in the midst of this, I'm hearing so many things that the Lord is speaking, but I'm saying all of that to say I have an organization The Instagram is love_and_define_you. So again, that's love_and_define_you. And that's Lady. And what I normally, or what I look to promote within Lady is just the whole idea of self-love. And not only self-love, but self-understanding. Why are we the way that we are? And a lot of times people look at their characteristics or their traits and they look at it negatively. You know, I talk a lot, or I'm very blunt, or I speak my mind. But those are that make us. And there are ways to look at those things and begin to embrace them. I don't want to totally change who I am to please other people. I want to understand why I am the way that I am, begin to embrace who I am, and be open to learning and growing and maturing on this journey called life, which is my own personal journey that looks different for all different people and all different women. So Lady kind of goes into that. So, you know, there's more to come, of course, because this has got my mind and my energy and my creative juices going crazy. So there's more to come with that organization, but those are the ways that you can reach me.
Okay, thank you.
I also mentioned MBCDI.org. That's National Black Child Development Institute.
Okay.
The national, the headquarters is in Maryland, outside of DC. And then Philadelphia also has an affiliate. So it's a BCDI Philadelphia affiliate. And they have tremendous resources for children with education, healthcare, economics, just everything. It's just so rich, and there's so many great things you can get from that website.
Thank you. Iris, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
They can find me at Iris Hines-Flamer at LearnStrategiesLLC.com.
Okay, thank you. Jan, how can our viewers find you?
I'm Jan Evans, 4248 at Gmail.
Okay.
But there are two other things that if I could mention real quickly about the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Philadelphia chapter. We have two of our programs are actually now being able to be done remotely. We have our general suicide prevention program called Talk Saves Lives. We can do it for your workplace, your faith-based community, just your but we can do everything remotely. But we also have something for parents called More Than Sad. And it's a program that's for schools, for parents, faculty, and then students, but we're doing the parent portion online, remotely, because it really, you know, knowing what those risk factors and warning signs are for kids are really important, particularly now. So it's called More Than Sad, or it's called Save Lives, and that can be you can reach through afsp.org/Philadelphia.
Thank you. And John, where can we find you?
Instagram is I'll Be Right There book. That's more so dedicated toward the book itself. If you actually just want to reach out to me, it's jonathan.marshall@eastern.edu.
Okay. Well, before we go, I just wanted to tell Trinity. So, what college are you going to? Have you decided yet?
I have, but I haven't announced it yet. So, yeah.
All right. So this is what I want to do for you, right? So every year, for the last 7 years, I've been giving out a scholarship for like a book. It's not a full scholarship, Tara. Close your mouth, Tara. But
oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Close your mouth, Tara. Hey, but I do want to donate like a small book award to you, Trinity, for $500.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Lamar.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it ain't a full award, Tara.
Still,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for
$500 is
that.
a lot of money for a college student. You're gonna find that out.
Thank you. And a college student's mama. Very appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But again, I thank you guys. I thank everyone that's viewing, and I thank you guys for joining the panel. I really appreciate you. And Isan, he should be sharing it pretty soon. So if not, then. But thank you again. I really appreciate you.
And thank you for having us.
Wonderful meeting everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And be well.
Yes,
Stay
stay safe.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So we're still live right now. I'm Hines from MBKCares. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I just want to touch on one thing that Janet Evans mentioned. We will be actually doing the Talk Saves Lives webinar. MBKCares has partnered up with AFSP to bring that information to our audience. So if anyone's interested in that, I encourage you to go to the MBKCares page, inbox myself, inbox Lamar, inbox any members of MBKCares, and we'll make sure that you're registered for that webinar. Because of the sensitive information, we can't put it out on public display the way we are now because it's not available to people who are under 18 years old. But that information is available to anyone 18 and older for the training of Talk Save Lives. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Cool.
All right, don't go away, everybody.